Hi everyone, Ræveðis here. So recently, Tim contacted me asking me if he can send me some questions for me to answer um, for this educational video about Galdra and runic magic that he's putting together. And I thought, why not? So he sent me these questions like a few days ago, and I didn't have time to go through them before today. So I just kind of like read through them real quick, and I thought I would sit down and just, without much preparation, just answer the questions from the top of my head to give you guys like a raw and honest answer to these questions. But before I get into that, there's a few things I just want to say. First off, I want to thank you, Tim, for the work he's doing, for engaging the community, for contacting people, asking them to participate in stuff like this, kind of like reaching out, branching out, making people interact and give something back to the community out there. A lot of us are out there who are working with these things tend to get a bit shut in and become a little hermitish. I myself spend an extremely large amount of my time alone and don't really spend much time with other people, a little talking about the work that I do. So that's a cool thing that he's able to engage people this way. So thank you, Tim. Another thing, just by briefly scanning through the questions asked, there's a thing I think I need to say before I start answering. This is quite simple, and you can say it goes overall in the cult community and in the heathen community as well, that if you're doing this kind of work, the things that we're working with, runes, runic magic, and Galta, also goes for sight and other kinds of magic. If you want to get results, if you want to influence yourself, influence others, and make a change in the reality surrounding you, you need to have absolute confidence in your work. This is paramount for what we're doing. You can spend a lot of time researching and you can accumulate a lot of knowledge, but you will still end up like, if you can spend 20 years studying the Eddas, the sagas, old manuscripts, Skuggebøger, Cyprianusar, Icelandic manuscripts, all kinds of stuff, all kinds of old grimoires, doing all kinds of stuff, getting a grasp of the Icelandic magic, of Scandinavian folk magic, trolldomskunst, and so forth. But if you don't have confidence in what you're doing, it's still not gonna work. Now another guy can walk in with practically little to none knowledge of the underlying historic value of these things and get great results simply by having true confidence in his work. So it's important, and I can't overstate this, that if you want results, you have to be confident in yourself, confident in your work. A lot of people try to fake this. You will see a lot of people boasting their abilities, bragging, and so forth. This is usually a sign that people are insecure about what they're doing, and they have a need to express security outwards towards others to get that sense of recognition and a feeling that they're doing something right. But usually that kind of behavior stems from insecurity. So don't be those guys. Be secure, be able to rest in yourself and feel secure about your work and be able to rest in the work you're doing. Don't be judgmental about others. There's so many different ways of approaching this kind of work. There's so many historic venues to look at. There's so many branches, so many ways that this can go. It's such an individual practice. So please bear in mind confidence in your work and yourself. So here I am lecturing and rambling. I'm really good at rambling. You're gonna get used to that by listening to me for a while. And also I tend to say fucking shit a lot, so I hope that's not a problem. If it is, then fuck. So let's get to the questions. Oh, and I recently got myself a mobile phone. I haven't had one of these for years. Kind of handy little thing. Ooh. I also have Danish Blandevin I made myself, and I think I'll have a little sip of that. Blandevin med bacon. Oh, by all means, while I am at it. So a cigarette. I don't usually smoke indoors, only when I'm drinking. So when I need a cigarette, I tend to drink. Let's get into the questions. So Tim asks me, is there a certain order one should learn or study the runes in? I was told of a specific order to study or meditate on. The quick answer, no. There isn't really any particular way that you should learn the runes. There is a logical way, logical approach to learning about runes, depending on what your goals are. If you really want to study runes and not just learn to use them for divination or some other kind of new age thing, I would advise you to go back and look at history. Go to the dry academic study of the runes. Look at historical findings, how they were used and how they evolved through Europe and branched out into over time into the younger Futhark, and we have like the Anglo-Saxon runes, and we have the Scandinavian, the Danish, Swedish, Norwegian, and Icelandic runes, and all sorts of different kinds of runes that spread out through Europe and evolved over time. I would definitely say that if you want to like build a good understanding of the runes, that is where to start. And once you got that basic understanding and perhaps started learning, like most people start learning the Elder Futhark first, start just learning writing your name with it or whatever, and then start understanding the meaning of each rune. You don't have to take it in a particular order. If you ask me, you're gonna run into people that are gonna say otherwise, that are gonna tell you that you have to start at a certain point and end at a certain point and do it in a certain way and meditate in a certain way and blah 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 blah. That is bullshit in my book. It's fine that people do it like that. If you want to like walk a particular dogmatic spiritual path in this, then by all means go ahead. There will be certain things that you need to take care of and be aware of if you want to be strict to that and stay true to that. But in my book, that is ridiculous. Follow your own instincts and your own feelings. If you want to start in the middle of like the second tier, learning some of the runes there, then by all means do that. Like, take the ones that feels most appealing to you and start learning those, using those in some manner, and go from there. That kind of answers that question, though, doesn't it? Look at the next question that Tim sent me. So, I'm gonna go up here. What photography set do you prefer to use, and the reasons why? Well, I prefer to use Danish runes. Quite obviously, because I am from Denmark. I live in Jylland, Jutland, Denmark, and I speak Danish and Ræveðis accent. And the Danish runes fit perfectly to this, especially to Ræveðis accent. And I tend to write a lot of my work, my esoteric work, in Yiddish dialect with Danish runes, because it just fits perfectly to it, and it's close to home, so it feels good. That's basically it. Now, that being said, like using the runes, I don't do divination in runes. I don't use runes for runic divination. I do use it for magic and for creating magical formulas, runic formulas, and I do occasionally do bind runing, but other than that, I don't use like small wooden bricks that I toss around for divination. I let other people do that. That's fine, but I don't care much for it. Next question. Can using or creating Galdrastafir have a negative effect on an uneducated practitioner? For example, I know you can create curses and unfavorable outcomes and so on. This is part of the reason for this educational video. What things should you be careful about? Well, in this community, you're gonna run into a lot of people when you like start showing off your work. That's gonna point you at Egil Saka and gonna say like, be careful what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, it could be harmful. To some extent, this is correct, but it does not, in my mind, particularly have to do with the runes themselves. This could be any kind of magic. It comes down to what I started talking about, the confidence in your work. Now, if you don't have a confidence in what you're doing, if you start doubting yourself, even on a subconscious level, have the slightest doubt in what you're doing, you're gonna bring in the risk of failure. The more doubt you have in your work, and this be on a conscious or a subconscious level, the more it's gonna like impact on the work, and the work is gonna falter and it's gonna fail. Don't let other people bring you down. Don't let other people's ideas of feeling insecure in your work make you insecure in it yourself. And don't fake security. Don't fake that you are secure about what you're doing. Don't fake your trust in it. Don't lie to yourself, because the moment you lie to yourself, you're lying to everyone. So be sure that you are 100% absolutely secure about what you're doing. If you're not, then don't do it. Go study some more, get good, don't do stuff that you're uncertain about. Not because it's the runes, or not because it's super dangerous, it's because you're gonna disappoint yourself, and you're gonna disappoint others. And of course you could lie yourself out of this if you're like one of these people that needs the recognition of your work. You could of course fake it, but it's gonna like leave you empty and hollow inside, so don't do it. Be secure about what you're doing and do it right. Basically my advice. Next question from Tim. How important is it to have a direction of force or target for the intended symbol? I have heard that you must direct or focus the energy to somewhere, otherwise it can cause problems. Is this true? Well, unless you're like sitting down and just drawing magical sigils for fun, for for your own entertainment. I can't really see how you can do or use symbols without a focus or a target. Even if you're doing it for fun, that is kind of like a target or an objective in itself. Um, I don't believe that drawing down a particular nasty Galdrastafir on a piece of paper is gonna affect you in any way, unless of course you do something that make you believe or make your conscious and thereby your subconscious mind ask questions, beginning to like believe that something might happen. So you can run into people that tell you like doing this kind of work, drawing these sigils, you're gonna break out the devil, like some evil thing is come by and eat you while you sleep. Um, this is not gonna happen. But you could like start walking down that alleyway if your mind start believing that that might happen. Then you might start seeing things out the corner of your eye. You might start getting afraid. You might start getting anxiety and so forth. You're bringing that onto yourself. Again, uncertainty. If you're not certain about your work, if you're not confident in your work, you're gonna bring in insecurity, and that will bring other bad things with it. So again, don't do things if you feel that it's a bad idea or you're not certain about it. Next question from Tim. Binding or destroying talismans or sigils and symbols. I've heard that it is necessary in some cases. When should you destroy it or bind a creation? And what is the reasons for this? If you do talisman work and amulets and stuff like that, I would say if the magic has reached its purpose, the talisman has fulfilled what it was brought to this world to do, then it is time to get rid of it again, like part with it. We know from historical Galdra, Galdrastafir and magic staves and formulas like that turned into talismans. There is a tradition for doing it in wood, on paper, on other destructible materials. If it was a talisman that you knew was going to serve a short goal, like a short-sighted goal, something in that would be fulfilled, and it would serve this purpose, and then you could burn it or toss it in a river or something like that to destroy it. Bury it in the backyard. Well, not your own backyard, the neighbors. Don't ever bury stuff in your own backyard unless it has a good purpose. And again, sometimes you might create stuff that will last forever, a lifetime. You might give it on to like a student or pupil or your children, and it will pass on and get generations. But basically, when something has served its purpose, get rid of it. And this goes with all things in life. You know, if you acquire yourself a book that you don't like, or you read it and you don't think you're gonna read it again, or it's shit, and you don't want to pass it on to anyone, get rid of it. If you get a movie or buy like a DVD or a CD that sucks, get rid of it. Find someone who might like it, give it to them instead. Get rid of shit in your life that doesn't have any meaning to you or doesn't serve a purpose. Next question from Tim. Invocation of gods or deities. Are there a set of Galdrastafir or bind runes that you can use specifically to invoke certain gods, goddesses, or is there a more personalized creation that we can all customize? Yes, and yes. There is certain sigils, Galdrastafir, bind runes, and so forth, created, both modern and historical, to communicate, summon, or in other ways work with certain deities or gods or goddesses. And yes, you can also create these on a custom level to suit your own personal needs. Um, Simple enough to answer. Let's take the next question. Let's see. Have you ever had any strange experiences or presence in your many rituals? I have done a handful of rituals and things, and once in a while I will get like this overwhelming feeling, like goosebumps all over, and a tingling sensation. But it's very brief and only lasts a few seconds. Have you ever had any strange or awesome experiences that you want to share? Well, yes, I had several. I've been working with these kinds of things for quite a number of years now, and I would say um, I had a lot of experiences in the early years while I was working with magic, like over 10, 20 years ago, and where I had that, like the hair was standing up in the back of my neck or on my arms, and I would get that slight feeling of something going on. But it wasn't until I really started to diving into meditation, trance states, and that kind of stuff that I really started experiencing odd stuff. Um, Especially performing udsidninger, utsitter, um, where I would go and sit out in the forest. I would go by sundown, and I would find a particular nice place in the secluded place in the forest of Roll. That is a huge forest near here. And I would sit like on a mound or by a huge old oak tree all the way through the night until the sun came up the next morning. This is like the best way, in my opinion, to do an utsita and the way it should be performed if you're serious about it. I would take like a skin with me to sit on and pass a blanket to hold over me so I wouldn't freeze too much, depending on the weather. Now, my favorite time of year for doing these kind of things are actually now during fall, during autumn, and I have tried like going out there and sitting down and I usually I usually don't close my eyes or cover my face. I kind of like stare into the trees and like see the silhouettes of the needle trees against the sky, um, and kind of like let myself dive into that as it gets darker and darker. But there always remains this vague silhouette of the trees and the movement of the trees and perhaps the stars and sometimes the moon and the sky and so forth. But I have been trying, like once I was sitting out there and you always hear like they'll start like being rustling sounds, like there'll be animals, there could be deer, badgers, rabbits, hares, foxes, and so forth, moving around in the forest. And to begin with, you'll be like startled by these, and then you'll get used to it. Well, I was sitting out there one time, one of the first time I really went into doing this hardcore wood sitting, and I would hear these large thumpy sounds somewhere behind me in the forest, and I would hear like tree trunks like crackling, and I was like thinking to myself, holy fucking shit, there is a huge massive troll somewhere behind me walking through the forest. I was scared shitless. I was so close to running, like just getting up, gathering my shit and run away, but I didn't. I stayed put, and I looked up at the sky as I do, and it wasn't there. I couldn't see anything. It was like there was this huge massive blockage of me in front of me, like I couldn't see past it. It was just pitch black, like something was standing really close to me, and I started like feeling this pulsating thing not very far from me. It was like it was really close to me, and I could almost like sense something breathing, looking at me, and I was scared shitless. and I have tried this a few times with these overwhelmingly huge figures showing up. I also see things out of the corner of my eye sometimes, like small things moving around and stuff like that. This doesn't really freak me out, but these huge things, they freak me out. And one thing to note, like a personal note of mine, is when this happens, it's gonna go away. It's like just gonna fade away. It's just gonna like disappear slowly, like it's disintegrating. And afterwards, something small and insignificant, or seemingly insignificant, is gonna happen, and that kind of always carries a great meaning with it. I have found out, at least for me, and it could be all sorts of things, but something small and insignificant is gonna happen, and I have to be aware of it, and I have to interpret it, and it's gonna have an impact on my life. I'm gonna take like a short break, and I'll get back answering the rest of the questions.